Hi, this is Lee Furseth. I'm the Executive Director here at the Headwater Science Center, and boy do we have a live show for you today. These are our 3:30 after-school STEM live shows, and STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. We do these shows every single day at 3:30, and they're available to you on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch TV. Go to our platforms and tune in. But right now we're going to be live. So just before I introduce our show today, and I'm telling you, I'm very excited about introducing our show today because we have a special presenter, a guest presenter today. Let me just tell you about our masks. I am fully vaccinated, so is our presenter today, and Ryan behind the camera is fully vaccinated. So we have our masks off, and we're going to keep them off for the show. But we're closed today, so we don't have any guests and visitors here. So we're all feeling very safe about all of that. So let me tell you about when we're open. We're open Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. Friday, Saturday, and Mondays is 9:30 to 5 o'clock, and Sunday is 1 to 5. We're open right after lunch on Sundays. So what are we doing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays? Well, we're closed to the public. Well, for one more week. We're closed to the public because we're having schools in here on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and schools are closing at the end of next week. So we will be open 7 days a week starting on June 1st. Mark that one on your calendar. June 4th, that's Friday, June 4th, we start being open 7 days a week. And one last thing before I introduce Dick. Thanks very much to Beltrami Electric. Beltrami Electric Cooperative is underwriting these shows. They give us a very generous donation, and we are happy to bring you these shows. So what are we doing today? We're talking about fish. We're talking about the science of fish and all the way down to filleting fish. So this is Dick Beardsley. He's coming on screen. Thank you very much for being here, Dick.
Thank you, Lee. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dick Beardsley. I own and operate Dick Beardsley Fishing Guide Service. I'm 65 years old, and I've been a guide since I was 12. So for you youngsters out there that are really into fishing, hey, you know what? You too can maybe become a guide someday. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot more work than what people think, believe me. But I just got back in from a guide trip, and I brought along a few walleyes and a couple of panfish, and I'm going to show you how I clean those. I fillet them out so there's no bones in them at all. So when you eat those fish, it's tasty as can be, and because the last thing you want to be doing is picking bones out of your teeth. Now, to saying that, I clean walleyes a little bit different than I clean panfish, and I'll show you both techniques that I use. But first off, especially for the kids out there, but even the adults, when you're using a fillet knife, they're extremely sharp, so you got to be very, very, very careful. Now, I've always been kind of old school and used the wooden handled fillet knife, something like this. But over the years, I don't know if I've gotten lazy or what, but I've gone to an electric knife, and they are unbelievable. This is a cordless one, and it's got a lithium battery on here. I can clean lots and lots of fish with just one charge on this. Now, saying that, you know, a knife like this will, you know, you can get a decent fillet knife for 10, 12, 15 bucks. A unit like this is about 150, but it's sweet and it's cordless. That's why it's more expensive. So if I'm doing a shore lunch with folks out on the lake, I can pull up on shore, get the fillet board out, and clean them right out. Oh, I could use a regular knife too. So I was out on a guide trip on Bemidji area lake today, and we just came through a couple of days of really cold weather. And sometimes those cold fronts, when they come through, they put lockjaw on those fish. It's like you can see them on your graph, but they got tight lips. Well, we were fortunate the last couple of days that we were able to still get some of those walleyes going out there. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to reach down and grab a walleye, just throw them in the bucket. They're on ice. And the walleyes, they spawn when that water temperature is like 45 to 48 degrees. So pretty quickly after the ice goes out, those walleyes move up to the shallow areas where there's gravel, some current, maybe some rocks, and that's where they lay their eggs. But now, at this point now, almost to the first part of June, these fish now are pretty much have made their way out to their summer haunts. And so now they're a little easier to pinpoint. You'll find them on rock bars, on sunken islands, on rock piles, things like that. And we've been catching our fish, the walleyes lately, in about anywhere from 12 to about 16 foot of water. Okay, so I'm going to use the electric knife on this. And so what you want to do, let me make sure the safety's off. There we go. Okay, so you want to lay your fish horizontal on your fillet board. And then what I like to do is I take my thumb and I put it right in that gill plate. So not where the gills are, but that plate right above it. And I just kind of secure the head. And then what you want to do, you want to take your knife and you want to go at an angle. Okay, so you want to go at an angle right behind this fin right here. That front fin right behind the gills. And then you... Now, to fillet fish, I'll be honest with you kids, and even moms and dads out there, you know, when you first learn how to fillet a fish, you're probably going to butcher a few. So it's kind of, you don't want to start on a walleye and butcher that. Maybe start on a perch or some fish of maybe a little lesser value to most people. So what you do though, you come down with that knife and you come right down to the spine. And you're going to say, well, how do I know if I'm on the spine? Well, you'll feel firmness there because you're cutting through the meat and the flesh, and you'll feel a firmness. What you don't want to do, and it'll happen from time to time, it even still happens to me once in a while, you'll cut through that spine and it makes the filleting the fish a little bit tougher. So then when I make that initial cut, and then I come down the belly side here. So I'll just show you. I don't go all the way down, but you can see where I cut down the belly there. And then when you get down to that spine, then you curve that knife and you just follow that knife all along the spine. So I'll do that right now.
So if someone was looking to learn how to fillet for the first time, is there a specific type of fish that is easy, you find?
Well, you know, perch are pretty easy. They fillet like a walleye, but their skin, their hide is tougher than nails just to get even a sharp knife through it. But you know, a perch is a good thing to learn on. And again, there's lots of perch out there. There's a lot of walleyes too, but the perch they're as good to eat as the walleyes, if not better. So now I'm down to that spine. I'm kind of going slow motion here, and then just go right along that spine, right above those fins, and right through the tail. So there I've got one fillet, okay? I got one side of a fillet, but I'm still not done with it. There's a couple more things I got left to do. So then you flip that fish over, and then you do the exact same thing. This time, instead of using your thumb to open the gill plate, you have to use your fingers because you're on the opposite side. Again, go at an angle right behind that front fin, and then right down on the other side, right along that spine. Okay, so there's not you can see through that pert there. So there's virtually no meat left on there. We'll throw that in our gut bucket here. So then the next thing you do is you want to get those rib bones out. So all fish have ribs, and except like a catfish and some of those types of fish, but all the fish around here, they all have ribs for the most part. And so you want to get those ribs out. So you'll see that rib cage in there, and you'll feel where that, maybe you can see that here. You can feel, this is a rib cage, and you can feel those rib bones right here. Now this is kind of the tricky part for some people. You want to get underneath those ribs, and then as you start cutting, you kind of raise and turn your knife and lift it up, and it'll take those rib bones right out. Okay, so the rib bones are out. Now, you don't want to eat the skin on there. It's got scales on it. Wouldn't taste very good. So then what you want to do is you want to get that skin off. And now can be a little tricky too, but once you practice a few times, you'll get through it just fine. So what you do is I stick my finger on the very tip of that tail down there where there's the skin there. And some people use a fork to hold it down better. And then you take that knife, let me get a little closer to the board here. You take that knife, you go right down, and you see me curving it. So I'm just following that skin. I've got a little fin left over here. So now we've got a walleye fillet. But now a lot of people, they throw this right now in the frying pan. But if you really want to have it completely boneless, right down the middle, you'll see the spine line right down the middle here. There's a small little set of pin bones. And a lot of times on the smaller walleyes, they'll fry right up. But on a walleye like this, a little bigger one, what you want to do is you take your knife and you go down each side of those pin bones all the way through, come down the other side, and then you got this strip. So that's pin bones. And now here you go. You've got a nice fillet. All you got to do is wash it up, completely boneless. And man, are they ever good. So we'll put that over here. And again, I'll show you on this one. Again, we want to get those rib bones out. So there's the rib bones. Then we want to get that skin off. There's the skin, no more meat. And then we want to get those pin bones out. Do that again here. Right down that to the left and right of those pin bones. And you can feel those little pin bones in there.
So how long does this take you when you're doing it for real?
So I'll do one now, how I would normally clean it, just to show you how quick it can be. Walleyes clean out quick. Now, the thing is, though, you don't want to, rush through it. If you're new at it, take your time. But this is typically how I do it. So I'll just kind of go, if I'm at home cleaning somebody's fish for them. That one's done. And we do, whoops, put it right on the table. Do the next one. Flip it over and get those pin bones out. Voila, probably less than a minute. And you've got, so then I've got one more walleye left to clean here, and I'll kind of go slow, kind of go a little bit slower on this one again, just so you can get this down. And the nice thing about this is you can always play this over and over again. And the best way to become a good fish filleter is just by doing it. It's like with anything. Practice, 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 and then practice a little bit more.
Let me ask a couple of questions.
Surely.
Ryan's back there behind the camera too. What's the distinguishing characteristic of a walleye? So if you held it up and said, oh, that's a walleye. Because there's also some other fish that kind of look like, what's the distinguishing
Sure, absolutely. So walleyes, it's hard to tell maybe on the camera, but their eyes, they call them old marble eyes too, because they look like they got cataracts in them. So the walleyes are super efficient feeders at night. So when it's dark, boy, and those other fish can't see real well, they can see really well. And that's why sometimes fishing at night can be so good for the walleyes, because they'll move up onto the shallows chasing bait fish. Another, and plus they've got this just beautiful northern Minnesota golden kind of a color to them. And then the walleyes, I don't know if you can see this, but in that lower end of the fin there, they got that white tip. And today, the guys I had out in the boat, I tell you, when I'm walleye fishing with people, I swear, you catch a lot of northern pike kind of in the same area. And like today, I go, oh, that's a nice walleye. I saw the white tip. Well, I start seeing white tips on northerns and they're not there. So, but that's kind of basically the distinguishing factor on
One more
those.
question.
Yeah.
If you were going to say how big this fish was,
Yes.
would you typically say how many inches, or would you give how much weight? So about what is this fish?
Yeah,
in
so
terms of
this
size?
is about a 17-incher, weighs, a pound and 3/4, close to 2 pounds, perfect eaters. And like in my boat, I kind of have my own little rules. Like on Lake Bemidji, there's no slot limit, as far as size wise, although state law, you can have 1 over 20 inches. But in my boat, we keep fish from 14 to just a hair under 20 inches. And then we put those 20 plus inchers back. We take pictures. Like last week, I had some folks that we got a 27-inch walleye. And when I explained to them why you want to put those fish back, first off, the size fish I got on the fillet board here are much better eating than the bigger fish. And those big fish, those 20 plus inchers, are just, especially those 20 to 26, 27 inchers, are right in the prime of their life for reproduction and giving out good egg production, things like that. And so that's why you want to put those fish back. And when you explain that to people, it's at first it's like, we got to put it back. And I go, we take plenty of pictures. But when they're able to release that fish and have it swim away, knowing it's going to produce more, or knowing that somebody else, maybe one of you young kids out there, is going to catch a 28, 30 incher, it gives them just a big smile on their face. So it's really important to not keep the big fish. And I'm going to talk about a bluegill I'm going to fillet for you here, and some of those strategies too, because it's a resource that reproduces itself, but we still got to watch our resource and make sure that there's plenty of great fishing for generations to come. So once again, when you've got it turned like this, you want to, with the head pointing to the left, you put your thumb in that gill plate, go right behind this fin right behind the gill plate, come down, go up the belly a little bit. And again, you don't want to go through that spine. You come down through it, curve your knife, and just follow that spine all the way to the end. So there's one. We flip them over. Do the same thing on the other side. Right along that spine. Okay, so we got that one all done for that part of it anyhow. And then now you want to take those rib bones out. Again, you can see where the rib bones are, you can feel them, and you put that knife right behind the rib bones as close as you can get. Start cutting and then curve that knife, and those rib bones will pop right out. And then now you want to get the skin off. So you can just stick your finger right down at the very end, and you got to be careful, you don't want to cut your finger, and put that knife right in front of it. Get down to the skin, turn it, and just press down and kind of keep your knife turned up just a little bit. Softer. And there, you've got a nice fillet, and we'll get those skin bones out. Okay, so that one's done. So we'll put those over in the done group. So we'll do it one more time. We'll get those rib bones out. We'll take the skin off.
So does it ever happen to you these days where you mess one up and try to butcher it?
Oh yeah, you get in a hurry or something, or aren't paying attention like you should, but even if you butcher them up a little bit, most of the time you can salvage them, and the last thing you want to do is throw in a nice fish in the garbage because you don't think you can get a piece of meat out of it. Even if you have to chunk it, because when I fry up my walleyes, I usually chunk them anyhow. Okay, so there we go. We got 6 walleye fillets. So now I'm going to show you how to clean a couple of panfish. So I've got a bluegill here. Okay, so this is a bluegill, and boy, I tell you, moms and dads, if you're looking to have some fun with the kids, especially for the next 2-3 weeks, these bluegills are up in shallow water, and they're a great fighting fish, and they're wonderful to eat. But before we do that, now I'm going to use just a regular handheld knife. The key to filleting fish well is to have a good, sharp knife. So what you want to do is, this is an old knife sharpener. I'll just run that through there. And again, kids, mom and dad, sharpen the knives. And if you're a young kid that wants to learn how to fillet fish, don't just take a knife out and sneak out in the garage and try it. Make sure mom and dad are there watching and helping. And if they've never cleaned a fish before, at least they're there watching you to make sure that, you know, you don't cut yourself or anything like that. But as long as you are safe with things, then I just rub it on my fingernail there. So now, with panfish, I do it a little bit differently. So here's what I do with panfish. I still go down just like I would on the walleye. I cut down. But now, instead of going like this with the knife, what I like to do on panfish is I take that knife and right along this dorsal fin. So the dorsal fin is this fin on all fish that sticks up on the back. That's the dorsal fin. And you want to go just on this side of the dorsal fin, right along the bones, and you'll feel it in there. And so you just make little itty bitty cuts like this. And then when I get down by the tail, I push that knife all the way through the other side, and just like that. Okay, so now what you do is you take your thumb, you kind of open that up, and then you just take the point of your knife and you just start peeling the flesh away, peeling that meat away. And what this does, the rib bones stay attached right to the fish. So you're getting the rib bones out all at once. And panfish can be a little tougher to clean sometimes just because they're a little bit smaller and to get a grip on them. And you just follow those rib bones, and you pull, and you can see it pulling away the meat from the rib bones. And when you get down there, a lot of times you can just pull it, and you just keep right along that rib cage. And I'll show you the rib cage when I get this fillet off here. And when you get down towards the end, you just cut that off. So that's the rib cage there. Those are the rib bones that we took out of the walleye. Here they're left right in it. Now we've got a fillet, no bones, and then you just got to get the skin off there.
So you're using a bluegill, but the same kind of general thing would work for the pumpkin seeds or the guppies or
Yep, you betcha.
even like a bass?
Yeah, yep, same thing. There's one little...
Dick, what's the distinction of a panfish? Where did that phrase come from?
You know, that's a
Panfish.
good question. Where did the phrase panfish come from? I guess because, you know, they fit in a pan. The fillets, most people pan fry them, you know, and I think that might be one of the reasons, but who knows? But there's a nice fillet again.
Kind of shaped like a pan.
Yeah, they are kind of shaped like a pan. So then you just flip that over, and then you do the same thing on the other side. So now for bluegills, this one was just a tad over 8 inches. Now, in my boat, we don't not keep any bluegills 9 inches and over. The smaller, those 8.5 inches are best eaters. And those 9 inches, I can see people keeping a few, but 10 inches and above, those are trophy bluegills. You do not want to keep those fish. And we are so fortunate in the Bemidji area, we still got trophy bluegill lakes where you can catch 10, 11-inch bluegills. Put those back, please, people, and keep the smaller ones for eating. Now, another thing, as long as we're talking about bluegills, is there's a number of lakes here in the area that the DNR just went into effect, a new law, a new rule, that you can only have, it used to be 20, you could keep 20 bluegills, combination sunfish. On a number of the lakes in the Bemidji area, you can keep 5 now. That's it, 5. And the reason is that they're trying to limit some harvesting, and what it has shown over the years, other lakes they've done that, is the lakes have really rebounded with big bluegills again. So in our area, the whole Cass Lake chain of lakes, the whole Turtle River chain of lakes, and like a lake like Medicine Lake and a few other individual lakes, Big Bass Lake, it's a 5 limit for sunfish bluegills. So most of the areas have signs up on them at the accesses, but it's your responsibility to know what lake you're on, and because the game warden, if he catches you with too many, you're going to be paying a pretty hefty fine. So again, we're just going right down that rib cage.
It's interesting you talked about how the big ones are in prime reproductive age. One of the things we talk a lot about here at the Science Center is what we call sexual dimorphism. So it's ways that the males and females of different species are different. And one of the things we see a lot is that the females are a lot bigger than the males in most species.
Sure.
That's true for
like
fish too.
Yeah, the bluegills, most of those big ones are big males, and that's why in the springtime the female bluegill will lay its eggs, and then the big male will protect those eggs from bass and other types of fish coming in and eating those eggs. And those big ones, they get a big lump on their head. I mean, they're big, and those are the ones you want to keep those big ones in the lake. So then, I got one more fish, and does anybody know what kind of fish that is?
Not one I frequently see people eating.
Our lakes,
I'm going to guess.
we got a lot of them. Lee, any guess?
A crappie.
It kind of looks like a crappie.
We have one here at the Science Center.
It's a rock bass.
Oh, that was my second guess.
And the lowly rock bass, people think, oh, rock bass. Let me tell you, folks, when I clean this out, if I had a crappie here, I'd show you. When I hold up a crappie fillet to a rock bass fillet, there's nice white firm meat, and when you fry them up, they are wonderful to eat. And people kind of turn their noses up to them, but let me tell you, it's saved many a shore lunch for me over the years, that's for sure. So again, same thing like the bluegill, just right down that, behind that, the gill plate there, down the belly a little bit, and out the tail, and then right down that spine. Now, the only thing about rock bass is that sometimes, especially midsummer and late summer, is that if you do keep some, some of them might have 1 or 2, maybe 3 white grubs in them. Little white grub. They're not harmful. If you left them in there, they're not going to hurt you. They fry right up. But what I do, if there is one, I just take the tip of my knife and just peck it on out of there. Not going to hurt you one bit.
And so did you catch all these fish you're doing today and on the same lake?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's like out here on Lake Bemidji. It's really known for its walleye fishing, pike fishing, world-class big-size muskies, and did I mention perch? But perch is a big fish out there. And but I tell you what, it's in some areas it's got giant rock bass. And if you got kids out there that want to have fun, these rock bass fight like you can't believe. And you can get on a school of them, and they're aggressive, and your kids and moms and dads, listen, I have a ball fishing for them because it's just, they pull hard, they aggressively bite. Now sometimes, and I don't know the scientific word for this, but you'll notice on here, no grubs, but you'll see these little black spots on some panfish. Bluegills have them sometimes. It kind of depends on the lake. And it's just they pick these little black specks up around certain weeds, they don't taste, they're not going to hurt you or anything like that. It makes a fillet look like, oh, I don't want to eat that. Believe me, when you throw it in a little batter, you won't even notice it there. If you're the one cleaning the fish, you don't have to tell anybody. You got a few black spots on there. The fish eat absolutely wonderful. So we got that one done. We got one more side to go here. And the rock bass have kind of a tough hide. And the key is, again, is just
So how do you tell a rock bass from a crappie?
well, the crappies are that black and black and white speckles. And they got a big mouth, and they call crappies. In fact, after I dropped the guys off on my guide trip today, I thought I'm going to go see if I can catch a couple crappies to bring in. And I had a nice one, about a 11.5-incher, right up to the boat. And I tried to just swing it in instead of getting the net. And its mouth, they call it paper thin. And if you look at a crappie mouth, you can pull a hook out so easy, and it just tore its lip a little bit, and away it swam away. So that's like when you're fishing for crappies, with a walleye or a pike, your bass, you set the hook hard. With a crappie, you just kind of give it you'll feel a pull, and you just kind of pull back. You don't want to just woof into it, or your jig will come flying out of its mouth with a piece of its lip. Okay, so now we'll get the skin out.
So what do you use to catch rock bass when you're fishing for them?
They will hit anything. You'll be fishing walleyes, and you'll catch them walleye fishing on a jig and minnow. You'll catch them fishing for sunnies with an angle worm. I mean, they'll hit just about anything. So there we go. We look at this. We got a nice pile of fish. Gonna make a great supper for Lee, I think. And that's what filleting a fish is. Again, it's not rocket science. Good sharp knives. If you use electric knife, that works really well too. And the main thing is a sharp knife, and just be very, very careful and enjoy your catch.
All right, thanks for tuning in today. That was our 3:30 show. Say, Dick, I'm hoping we can have you back, because I'm willing to bet we're going to have lots of questions coming in.
I'd love to be back.
When we come back, we'll ask you those questions.
You betcha.